I think often in organizations today, we have a real limit to how much of the capacity of us humans that organization can really harness. How many people go to work every day and feel like the best of everything they can offer is fully used by that organization each and every day? I think the answer to that is typically very little. In fact, as humans, I think most of what we sense doesn't have anywhere to go to get processed in organizations. So we have to just sit with it, and we get apathetic or we get burned out, we get stressed out, whatever. It's very rare that we have an organization that really allows us to take everything we can sense, every potential reality we see, and do something to move our current reality towards it. In fact, let me introduce a term I call tension. I define a tension as the felt sense of a gap between our current reality and a sensed potential. And I like the Latin root of this word is tensere, to stretch. And I think we can think about these tensions as a stretching between where we are today and some future that we could be if only we could move current reality towards it, like a rubber band stretched between these 2 points. There's energy there, and that energy can be used to pull current reality towards that future. But only if we have a way to process the tension. If we just have to sit on it, it's not going to happen. In order to really process this tension, we need organizational systems and structures designed to allow us to do that. And the way organizations run today really don't have that capacity. We're dealing with organizations with an operating system that really matured up over the first half of the last century and hasn't evolved much since then. It's not really meant to allow everyone in the organization to have the ability to take all of these tensions they sense and do something with them. It's really, in fact, designed in many ways to shut people down so that the people at the top can lead and everyone else can get in line and not do anything with what they sense other than follow orders. It goes back to Henry Ford's famous quote, "Why is it every time I buy a pair of hands, they come with a brain attached?" In that model of organization, you don't want people processing tensions because the way we achieve control is by having only a few people at the top be able to process what they sense and have everything else align with that. And that mode of organizing worked well enough back when it first came about in Ford's day. But today we deal in a world with so much complexity and uncertainty that it's very difficult for organizations to thrive when they're that limited in their capacity to process tensions. And that's to say nothing about how it impacts us humans when most of us go to work every day and don't really have the ability to use our full capacity and bring that to bear on some larger purpose. So I think if we want to evolve our organizations today, one of the key things we need to look at is how the organizational operating system can be upgraded to something powered by tension processing, where any tension sensed by anyone anywhere in the company has some place to go to get rapidly and reliably processed into meaningful change. And if we're going to do that, I think one of the things we need to look at first is our organizational structures. When we're in our top-down management paradigm that we see today, control gets centralized at the top, which makes it really difficult to adapt to the sheer volume of tensions sensed throughout that organization. And a great metaphor for this is the human body, a biological system. If you look at all of the information that our body processes second to second, it's quite incredible. And it does that by not trying to centralize all processing at the top, but rather by having a distributed system where you've got these autonomous self-organizing entities, we call them cells or organs or what have you, distributed throughout the body. Each of them has a capacity to take in messages from its environment, to process, to organize some work process, and to generate some output. Each one has its function and it has an autonomy to organize how it completes that function in the body. That doesn't describe most of our organizations today, and yet when we can build that capacity to organize at scale with a more distributed self-organizing system, we get the ability to respond to complexity and uncertainty at a level that's much greater than we see in our typical top-down structures. And yet it's important we move not just towards an autonomous distributed system, but one that retains the alignment and interdependency that we also see in our human body. If one of our cells decides to ignore its environment and pursue its own path regardless of that environment, we call that cancer. Self-direction is not the same as a healthy self-organizing process, which has an alignment with the whole systems. In fact, the systems in our body, our cells aren't just all distributed and autonomous, they're grouped together in organs. And we have organ systems, and all of these form a holarchy or a natural hierarchy of increasing scope, increasing wholeness, and they work together in an interdependent environment so that tensions can get processed locally and so that we still end up with a whole system alignment. And I think that's a great place to look for what we need in a more organic organizational structure to deal with the complexity in our world today. And yet also important, even if we have a more organic structure, a more fractal holarchic structure, and these principles about processing tensions, that's not going to do it. We need a lot more than just principles, even in a potentially powerful new structure. If we want to process all tensions that are sensed anywhere in that structure, we also need very clear, defined systems and processes to do it. Concrete systems, I mean meeting structures, meeting processes, decision-making systems, some kind of clear power structure for distributing authority, so that most tensions can get processed autocratically by one individual with the clear autonomy to do it, and yet that can be done in an overarching system that ensures everyone has a voice and is as integrative as it is autocratic. So that anyone with one single tension anywhere in that company knows that there's a clear process to show up in where that tension can get addressed. And if that tension is not clear, if it's not clear where that tension can get addressed, we have a process for deciding that. And decision-making processes that allow everyone to have that voice without devolving into the tyranny of consensus. And to do that, we need fast, disciplined approaches so that we're not processing one tension with all our time while every other tension sensed in that system is stacked up, queued up, and not getting addressed. We need to be able to rapidly move through every single tension sensed so that any tension sensed by anyone, anywhere, can actually get addressed. That takes rapid, reliable tension processing, and that takes disciplined, concrete systems and processes. It's just as important as the principles behind them. And if we can do that, if we can put in place these concrete, clear, disciplined structures and systems within an overarching, more organic organizational structure, we give our organization a capacity for evolution, new potential that most of our organizations today don't really have. If we can give our organization the ability to consciously evolve by taking our full rich capacity as humans to sense reality and to integrate everything we sense into that organization's approach to doing its work in the world, approach to unfolding its purpose in life. Right? Now we have an organizational capacity for evolution, for rapid continual evolution, one tension at a time. And what that does for us humans is pretty remarkable as well. When we can show up in a company where our full, rich capacity to sense reality is actually embraced, where we can show up fully and authentically in service of something larger than ourselves. Well, that's a pretty remarkable system for us to show up in as well. And I think it's a pretty remarkable change for most organizations today, which really limit our ability to do that. Doing all of this is going to take something a lot more than just this short talk and short ideas. It's going to take a new operating system. And there is one, a system I work with called Holacracy. It is a new operating system powered by processing tensions. There's a lot more to it. You can learn a lot more at www.holacracy.org and learn how any tension sensed by anyone, anywhere in the company, has somewhere to go to get rapidly and reliably processed into organizational evolution.